Hey, 怒った?
怒ってないよ。
Hey, 怒った?
怒ってないよ。怒。
Rank 10 Epic! 12 plus years of exposure to this Japanese marketing machine disguising as a card game, and I'm still struggling to comprehend why Toons are treated as a monster ability, or subtype some would say, instead of an actual archetype. Flip monsters, Union, Spirit, Gemini and Tuners all have enough thematic variety in their usage to warrant being specifically categorized, but Toons are almost completely segregated into their own support and playstyle, so the most beneficial aspect of the Toon category is that Konami can save up ink when printing Toons because they don't have to put quote marks around the word. Including 2 specific support cards, they're an archetype for all intents and purposes, and will be reviewed as such. Toons were the signature deck of Pegasus J. Crawford, a fan-favorite classic Yu-Gi-Oh villain, because he talked like this.
Yugi boy, Yugi boy, Yugi boy, no thanks, Yugi boy.
Toons also happen to be a fan-favorite of DeviantArt custom card creators, since you can apparently slap any chibi art of a monster you find on the internet or a screen cap from the anime onto a card and call it a Toon. Their primary gameplay gimmick relies on this card right here, the continuous spell Toon World. You activate this card by paying 1000 life points. And that's all, folks! I would say Toon World does nothing, but that's not really true. It makes you pay 1000 life points. So if we add spell economics to the deal, you technically need to put in additional effort for Toon World to do nothing. After seeing the card so insanely hyped up in the anime as a kind of miracle device that toonifies all of your monsters and gives them cool new abilities, seeing how the card is actually applied caused considerable mental damage to a certain 12-year-old Slavic boy a decade ago. The card itself feels to be something you didn't really want to run in a Toon deck, but did nonetheless do it a lack of a decent alternative. Sound familiar? However, 15 years after the original put a blight upon the world, the retrain Toon Kingdom came to be. It's a field spell with the following effect. When this card is activated, banish 3 cards from the top of your deck face down. This card's name becomes Toon World while in the field zone. Your opponent cannot target Toon monsters you control with card effects. If a Toon monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish 1 card from the top of your deck face down for each of those monsters instead. Maybe it's a good thing it took 15 years for this to become a thing, because I feel it would have been significantly worse if it came out at any other time. The cost is a bit rough and it can occasionally cause you to lose a decent combo piece, but the protection more than makes up for it. My issue is that it doesn't exactly do anything to extend your plays, but given that we're looking for alternatives to Toon World, beggars can't really be choosers. Now, approaching the actual Toon monsters is a bit of a tricky endeavor. All of them are based on an existing monster and are extremely simple to understand. If they're based on an effect monster, they share that monster's effect along with a bunch of Toon-related specifics, and if they're based on a normal monster, they either have additional unique effects or they're simply left with the specifics and have nothing going for them. I would love to be able to outline these specifics like I do with any archetype that has a bunch of shared effects, however, Toons are famously schizophrenic when it comes to the consistency of their common restrictions. Since I obviously can't easily round up said restrictions, let's do the next best thing and sort them out by groups of shared effects. Thank you whoever organizes the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikia for making this a lot simpler for me. Class A consists of Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, Toon Summon Skull, Mangar Uran, I don't fucking know, and Toon Mermaid. Their shared effects are the following. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must special summon itself from the hand by tributing the same number of monsters as for a tribute summon of a monster with its original level while you control Toon World. In the OCG, after being special summoned properly, it can be special summoned from the graveyard or while banished by any appropriate effect, and it is not necessary to control Toon World in this case. Why OCG only? Don't ask me. Cannot attack the turn it is special summoned. Requires paying 500 life points to attack. If Toon World on the field is destroyed, so is the Toon monster. If the opponent doesn't control any Toon monsters, the monster can attack directly, but otherwise it must target a Toon monster for its attacks. Okay, so quick elaboration. The whole thing about tributing the same number of monsters as for a tribute summon of a monster with its original level is a leftover from more than a decade ago when the effect text on Toons was fairly incoherent to say the least. This caused quite a bit of confusion regarding how tributing interacts with stuff like cost down for example, in terms of it still being a special summon condition, but not only would something like this not be a viable strategy in this day and age, but Toon Blue Eyes also got an errata explicitly stating you need to tribute 2 monsters for its summon, and you can also special summon it by other ways after it properly hits the field once. Why haven't the other Toons been updated to their OCG status? I don't know, maybe the cartoon is on hiatus. The reliance on Toon World being being on the field, summoning sickness and direct attacking are a staple of the Toon playstyle, so you'll be seeing quite a lot of this in the rest of the monster lineup. If anything, the direct attacking is probably their strongest aspect. I can only attribute the bizarre 500 life point cost for attacking to the fact that these cards are so ridiculously old, and they needed some way to circumvent all the vehement direct attacking going on. As for these cards themselves, the only one you would ever want to consider running in this day and age is Toon Mermaid, due to being able to special summon itself for no cost while you control Toon World, but even so, it's an inconsistent swarm fodder with no decent effect of its own, so much like the rest of these, it's probably not worth it. Class B consists of one card, Toon Dark Magician Girl. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned from your hand by tributing one monster while you control Toon World. If Toon World on the field is destroyed, destroy this card. Can attack your opponent directly unless they control a Toon monster, in which case this attack must target a Toon monster for its attacks. This card gains 300 attack for each Dark Magician or Magician of Black Chaos in either player's graveyard. It's Dark Magician Girl with the old standard Toon limitations, except she can attack on the turn she's summoned and doesn't require a payment of 500 life points. Why is this the case? Well, I have a theory. Back before problem-solving card text jumped in to save the day, Toon Dark Magician Girl was the card with the longest effect text in the game, so I presume that because they wanted the Toon version to keep Dark Magician Girl's 300 attack boost effect, they had to get rid of some Toon aspects to make the text fit in. These are of course just postulations, but I find some credibility in them, given that the several initial prints of Relinquished left out the ritual spell requirement because the effect was so obnoxiously long. God forbid somebody showed them Nirvana High Paladin back then. In turn, this made Toon Dark Magician Girl the only Toon monster to this date that can attack on the turn it's summoned, but does that make it worth running? I guess there are worse Toon monsters to consider, and it's really not that hard to get a single monster out in the field for the special summon fodder, but I personally prefer Toons that do things instead of just hitting hard, so run only by preference. Class C consists of Toon Cannon Soldier, Toon Gemini Elf, Toon Mask Sorcerer, and Toon Goblin Attack Force. These monsters can be normal summoned or set, have no effects to special summon themselves from the hand, cannot attack the turn they're summoned, if Toon World is destroyed so are the monsters, and if the player controls Toon World while the opponent doesn't control any Toon monsters, they can attack directly. Alongside this, they have their own unique effects. Cannon Soldier allows you to tribute a monster to deal 500 damage to your opponent. When Gemini Elf inflicts battle damage to your opponent, discard one random card from their hand. When Sorcerer inflicts battle damage to the opponent, draw one card, and if Goblin Attack Force attacks, it's changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase and cannot be changed until the end phase of your next turn. You're gonna wanna run as many Gemini Elves and Sorcerers as you can, since they're probably the best monsters in the archetype, having simple but efficient effects. Both of them being level 4 is also a nice touch, opening up the potential for some Xyz plays. Toon Cannon Soldier turns the Cannon Soldier FTK searchable because god knows we need more of that in the game, and it's really not worth running in Toons for any conceivable purpose, and Toon Goblin Attack Force is not much good for anything other than immediate disposal. Yeah, this was from back in the day when 2000 or more attack on a level 4 monster required military grade restrictions to save the poor helpless meta. It kinda makes you wonder what the thought process was for adapting these really specific old monsters into Toons, since I highly doubt anyone would know about the original Mask Sorcerer if it wasn't for the Toon version. So where the hell is my Toon changeling? Class D of Toons consists of their newest monster lineup, Toon Dark Magician, Red Eyes Toon Dragon, Toon Buster Blader, Toon Cyber Dragon, Toon Barrel Dragon, and Toon Ancient Gear Golem. They can be normal summoned perfectly fine, they have no tribute to special summon conditions, cannot attack on the turn they're summoned, if Toon World is destroyed the monsters stay on the field no problem, and of course if the player controls Toon World and the opponent doesn't control any Toon monsters, they can attack directly. As for their individual effects, the ones based on effect monsters have pretty much the same effects as the monsters they're based on. Ancient Gear Golem disables back row when attacking and deals piercing damage, Buster Blader gains 500 attack for each dragon type monster your opponent controls or is in their graveyard, Barrel Dragon lets you flip a coin 3 times and destroy a card on the field if you get at least 2 heads, and Cyber Dragon can be special summoned from your hand if the opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters. Red Eyes Toon Dragon allows you to, once per turn, special summon one Toon monster from your hand except Red Eyes Toon Dragon, ignoring its summoning conditions. Toon Dark Magician, also once per turn, lets you discard one Toon card, then either special summon one Toon monster from your deck except Toon Dark Magician, ignoring its summoning conditions, or add one Toon spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. You see, I can kinda get Cyber Dragon since the effect is legitimately decent, but I find it really hard to validate the existence of the 3 other effect monster adaptations. It's like they exclusively limited themselves to nostalgia baiting as opposed to toonifying the monsters with effects the archetype would actually benefit from. God forbid you gave them some more level 4s, no, instead it's nerf or nothing! However, I do find it kinda clever how the artwork of Toon Barrel Dragon is based on the censored American version of Barrel Dragon, but I can't tell if it was done as an homage or shade throwing. On the other hand, Dark Magician and Red Eyes actually had some effort put into their effect design, giving the archetype some much needed consistency and swarming potential. It's just a bit of an issue that you need to either tribute summon them or rely on some fairly specific support to make them hit the field, making their effects annoyingly tempting as the cards sit in your hand with no way to pop out. Blackstone of Legend is a decent gimmicky way to summon Red Eyes, even though it takes away your normal summon for the turn, so run a couple of these if you have Toon Red Eyes and Dark Magician in your deck. I'm personally a big fan of these two, especially Toon Dark Magician because the Toon spell and trap lineup is hysterical, as we'll see soon, but some people prefer a more control-centric build featuring only Toon Gemini Elf and Masked Sorcerer, along with a bunch of traps. The choice is yours and yours alone. I'm not gonna talk about Toon Alligator because I believe both you and me have better things to do in the time it would take me to talk about Toon Alligator. In fact, these 3 seconds were a complete waste of seconds. The first Toon spell card is Toon Table of Contents. It simply says add 1 Toon card or manga you ran from your deck to your hand. Yes, this does indeed mean you can use Toon Table of Contents to search another copy of itself, which was an extremely popular deck thinning and counter-generating engine in decks focusing on Royal Magical Library. Is every book in there Toon World? That's horrifying. Naturally, around 3 of these, it's as simple as you get with consistency boosting, and I honestly think it would have been improved if it said you can search manga you ran with it. Toon Rollback has the following effect. Target 1 Toon monster you control, it can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. I'm not really fond of running it, but it can certainly result in really fat damage output in the more swarm-centric builds, especially when searched with Dark Magician. It's almost a guaranteed 2500. It's almost a guaranteed 5000. It can also make for some additional discarding or drawing with the level 4s, so run it if you feel lucky. Shadow Toon can be activated if you control Toon World, and it lets you target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. You can only activate 1 Shadow Toon per turn. It's more flat damage output, but this time relying on your opponent's lineup of monsters to be of any use. While it can make for some decent burn, it highly depends on the deck you're facing, so I think you're just better off playing Rollback if you want to hit harder. Their next normal spell is Mimicat. If you control Toon If you control Toon World and a Toon monster, target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard. If it's a monster, special summon it to your side of the field, and if it's a spell or trap card, set it to your side of the field. You can only activate 1 Mimicat per turn. Back when Toons were getting their first wave of modern support, everyone was panicking because stuff like this implied Toons would be horribly annoying to deal with. As we know, that didn't exactly turn out to be the case, but Mimicat is still an insanely fun card to use, being able to steal a large beater or a nasty counter trap. The only way this concept could have been improved is if they had made it a quick play, which would have made for some spicy disruption. It's a bit gimmicky, the activation condition can be a bit annoying, and the card doesn't really have a consistent practicality in the deck's playstyle, but come on, you're playing Toons, have some goddamn fun for once and use it to piss people off and have a good time. If I see that goddamn cat one more fucking time! Their last spell card is Comic Hand, an equipped spell that says if you control Toon World, equip this card to an opponent's monster. Take control of it, it's treated as a Toon monster. If your opponent controls no Toon monsters, it can attack directly, and if Toon World is not on the field, destroy this card. Oh, first the hand catches you, then you catch these hands. Boing, boing. It's fun stuff, especially if you take control of a monster with huge stats or an important playmaker. Kinda like Mimicat, the potential for its usage is inconsistent and highly dependent on your opponent's loadout, but it plays into the wacky team of Toons, and easy monster snatching is not really something you see a lot of these days. For maximum irony, use this to take control of Giant Hand. Their first trap card is a normal trap, Toon Briefcase. When your opponent summons a monster while you control a Toon monster, shuffle that monster into the deck. That's it, that's all. It's gone. No monster. Bye bye, hungry boy, eat! Run 3, it's funny as shit. What else did I tell you? Firewall Dragon, more like Cabinet File Dragon. Toon Mask is another normal trap, which you can activate if you control Toon World. Target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Special summon 1 Toon monster from your hand or deck, whose level is less than or equal to the level or rank of that monster, ignoring its summoning conditions. Okay, before everything, yes, let me state the obvious. The artwork very much looks like the famous American cartoon hero, Flick the Fuck Duck. Now that we have that out of the way, somebody once told me that Toon Mask is gonna roll me, but I don't really think he's the sharpest tool in the shed. It's another Toon card that relies on your opponent in order to do stuff, and while against certain decks it can pretty much give you access to your entire monster base, sometimes the best you'll get are the level 4s, and occasionally it can do so little it makes you look kinda dumb, as if you were holding a finger and a thumb in the shape of an L on your forehead. But the cards start coming and they don't stop coming, so you'll most often be able to get some mileage out of Toon Mask, and given that it's one of the best ways to get access to Red Eyes and Dark Magician, it doesn't make sense not to live for fun, so running 2 or 3 is the way I like it and I'll never get bored. The last Toon card is Toon Defense, a continuous trap that says, when an opponent's monster declares an attack targeting a face-up level 4 or lower Toon monster you control, you can make the attack into a direct attack instead. This was the kind of masochism Toon players had to subject themselves to in order to protect their monsters quite a few years ago, but with the revolution of the cartoon industry they all immigrated into CalArts, Toon Kingdom. Just don't bother with this one. Now, I'm not some kind of a nostalgia critic, but I'm gonna grade some Toons here. Their consistency is not amazing, but not too bad either. After all, they do have a spell that searches the entire archetype, but they could seriously use some better archetypal swarming tools. Their power output has the potential to be massive, but the summoning sickness and occasional lack of field presence highly dampens it. Their recovery is essentially non-existent. They have amazing protection in the form of Toon Kingdom, but that's about it. A single piece of spell and trap removal and you lose the game of Defend the Castle. They have a lot of variety in their back row, allowing for adaptability on the go, and there are a few different variations of Toon builds you can go for these days, so I'll give it a somewhat generous 3. Here's a Toon deck, focusing extensively on using as many decent Toon cards as possible, going so far as to run a couple of Toon mermaids, mainly because the deck is desperate for more level 4s. Go second if possible, fill up the extra deck with whatever you want, however I very much recommend Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon because it gives Toon Cyber Dragon a lot more utility. Toons are definitely a unique part of Yu-Gi-Oh's archive of archetypes, mainly due to not having a single solitary original monster of their own, and due to the spell and trap lineup being so incredibly wacky. I honestly believe this deck has the potential to become incredibly dangerous given the right tools to play with. Couple that up with the aesthetics that seem to be extremely well received by the fanbase, and you get yourself a real Disney classic. Or Looney Tunes, I don't care. Manga reran spin-off comic.
Ojama Line prank calls. Let's go! Ojama Country Docu-Rentals, this is the head ass speaking. Hello! This is Ojama Line. Oh, me too. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. So, can I can I ask you something? Sure, I guess. Is your refrigerator running? What? Or you better turn it on. Sir, oh man, I really got him. I'm so lonely. Oh, well hello kind stranger. This guy's a handful, isn't he?
Thank you everyone for watching this episode of Archetype Archive. Be sure to donate to the Patreon if you want to request an Archetype review, join the Discord, or simply support the channel for some reason. Uploads might be a bit slow these few months due to college work, but you're probably used to that at this point. I'm Rata, and I'll see you next time.